Welcome back, everybody. We have another episode of Street Tales, and I am very excited. I finally were able to figure out scheduling with Amanda Dozanti, aka AK. I just wanted to say that. Great nickname, or however you want to phrase it, for someone who's in the law enforcement profession. I love it.
Yeah.
I
Well,
absolutely love it.
It's my initials, Amanda
Yeah.
K. So
I know it works.
yeah.
I'm very excited to get into this with you. We're going to talk about burnout prevention and recovery for first responders. And BJ is going to join us at some point. He's having technical difficulties, as we do. But with that being said, it's just kind of how we started. And I know we've talked a little bit offline, but how did you grow up? Where did you grow up? Like, with the intent being, like, what got you into the realm of being a first responder?
Well, the whole first responder public safety thing kind of happened by accident, but I grew up in southeastern Ohio, out in the hills, and I was just a little, I don't know, just a country girl, basically. Grew up, there was a gun behind every door in our house because the popo were not close. They weren't like just patrolling out in the middle of nowhere. And, you know, we had a wildlife, and my dad was a trapper by trade. So that was an interesting upbringing. And yeah, so I, when I was 19, I was in my undergrad and did some shadowing with undercover online investigations, and that was like my initial entry into law enforcement and the first responder world.
Really? So it started for you. Were you a criminal justice major?
Not initially. I went in like totally undecided, and I was like, yeah, I'll just take some classes. And I took one of those, I don't know, it was like an aptitude test or one of those things that kind of tells you like where your strengths are. My strengths were in service and legal. And so it kind of, I mean, that narrowed it down for me pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
And I very well could have gone the legal route, because when I want to be, I can argue and debate very well. But I try to hold that part of myself back a little bit, because I get a little too fired up. But ultimately it was shadowing that department, that, you know, that real life experience that got me into the realm and into the world of what it really looks like.
Yeah. So let me ask you this, because a lot of people are like, oh, so you grew up with guns and stuff like that. And they think like, oh, that must be what got you into law enforcement. And I don't think that's the case, right? Guns is a part of it, the level of comfort. But you talked about service to others, and then legal. That's very. I know that to be true, but I guess I've never heard it broken down that way.
Yeah.
Do you agree with the assessment? Like, I mean, was the service part, or, I mean, what fascinated you about that career path?
So the service part for me, that's just like helping people, right? And I feel like that's just part of my nature. And the legal part, ever since I was a kid, have had a very strong sense of justice. There is a right and there is a wrong. And sometimes that's just my own opinion of what's right and wrong. And I fought hard for that when I was younger. So I completely agree with the assessment. And I think a lot of it just falls back on the values that I was given as a kid. My mom was a financial advisor, but it wasn't about money for her. It was about setting people up for security and longevity. And my dad, like I said, he was a trapper, so he helped out farmers and protected their livestock, but he was also a mechanic. And so he kept people's, so it wasn't for them about like the jobs. It was like the byproduct and the outcome of the job. Like you're
Yeah.
helping people. So that was always just instilled in me.
That's so interesting. Financial advisor and trapper mechanic upbringing. I love it. I absolutely. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Well,
That's one of the parts I love about this.
and my stepdad, because my parents divorced and then
Mhm.
my mom remarried, and uh, my stepdad had his own business as an HVAC, plumbing, heating, cooling
Great,
business.
great career.
And, you know, anytime somebody, Pastor Bob calls and,
Mhm.
hey, the furnace is out at the church, it's 11 p.m. I'll be right there. It
Yeah.
and it was just that service mindset and the heart of somebody who's just ready and willing to help at any moment.
This is not where we were going to take this first episode, but I don't know. I guess maybe because of what we were talking about a little bit beforehand, but
Hmm.
I think that's what's lost. And again, we'll move on from this very quickly, but I just kind of want to stay on it for a second. In the public mindset, the hatred towards law enforcement and the different factions of law enforcement, they forget that most people, men and women, get into it they want to. It's a noble profession, takes some bravery, but it's to serve their community, right? They
Yeah.
want to stop bad things from happening. But also, I mean, cop stuff, you do so much more than that, right? The mental health aspect where you're dealing with people who are in, different phases of mental, I'll just call it a breakdown for purposes of the show. And then also accidents that occur, injuries, right? Typically, cops are the first ones on the scene.
Yeah.
So it's not just going out and arresting bad guys all the time. There is another. I mean, I changed more tires in full uniform than I can remember. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
you got somebody with their whole family, and they're like, I don't know. Yeah, I got it. I'll just jacket it. There's
Yeah.
just so many components to it that I think that's gotten lost,
Well, and I think a
unfortunately.
lot of it is, typically when you're in public safety, y- y- I don't know if it's always a character trait before you get into it, but I feel like a lot of people in public safety are just resourceful humans. Like they
Oh,
just
that's
know how
very
to
true.
do a lot of things.
Yeah.
They're well versed, they're well rounded, and um, maybe not everybody comes into it that way. But if you're in it for very long, you will become very resourceful, or you're going to
Mhm.
get weeded out. Um, so just like, having the knowledge of how to change a tire, things like
Yeah.
little things like that, or because you just don't know what you're going to come up against. And um, I think that, those people are valuable in a lot of different situations. And policing, especially, is so much more than what we're seeing today in 2026.
Yes. Uh, I love the resourcefulness and I think, people call you to solve problems. They're not always criminal problems and, they're not the things that necessarily you were trained for, but you're there now and
Mhm.
everyone is looking at you to solve whatever problem it is. And so you figure it out. I mean, I can remember I was a deputy in Florida, and in Florida, you can't discharge your firearm to dispatch an injured animal. I'm trying to be PC. They don't want you doing that.
Sure.
So you had to use other ways to do that. And there was like 4 of us that would do that. In Maine, when I was a trooper up there, my God, it was like 2 or 3 times a day. It was like either, an injured, whatever, porcupine, a moose, I mean, whatever it was. Like, it was just all the time. And they had no issues with it. So it's like you have to learn to adapt wherever you're at.
Well, and so sticking with street tales, the
Yeah.
best radio transmission I ever heard, because we were
Yeah.
we were allowed to put an animal down
Yeah.
with our firearm. But the best one I ever heard was a guy came across, they had a raccoon that was likely rabid,
Yeah.
and he came across the radio and said, "The animal has been terminated. I'll be 33." It's like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, little things like that people don't think about. Like, I had to go um, put down we'll say remove a skunk from a barn one time.
Oh,
Like, why am I the one that has to do that? But
thank
listen,
you. Yeah.
I'm a trapper's daughter,
Yeah.
and
I
I
know.
know where to place the projectile on the body so that it does
Mm.
not spray. Because if
Mm.
you shoot it, if you place the projectile in the head, then it becomes a
Yeah.
neurological thing and it automatically happens. But if you place the projectile in the lungs, then it won't spray. And so dumb things like that you would never think.
Yeah.
So just sticking with street tales. There's some
That's right. I
fun little
love it. I
stories
love it.
for you.
I was telling my coworker the other day about an injured deer in Florida, and it was in the city of Tampa proper.
Ugh.
And it was injured. I mean, a car had hit it, and so these two city cops, they were there blocking the. I had a ride along with me, and they called. I was like, "Yeah, I'll go take care of it." So I dispatched it
Mhm.
without a firearm. You can understand what that is,
Mm.
and it makes a noise for a few seconds, but it's the fastest, most humane way. I look up, everybody's crying.
Oh.
They're like, because the noise, are like, that will haunt my dreams. And then I get my patrol car, and one of the dispatchers was like, "Hey, how's the meat?" And I was like, "I think it'll be okay." She's like, "Cool, I'm gonna go get it on my on my break." I mean, like, you can't make this stuff up.
Well, and sometimes I forget because I grew up with stuff like that
Yeah.
people are very sensitive to things like that. And
Oh
I
yeah.
had to put down a raccoon one time that was likely rabid, and the lady wanted to be like out there with me. And I'm like,
Uh,
just stand back a few feet, like whatever.
Yeah.
And I did it, and I turned around and I was trying to warn her, and I was like, he's gonna flop around for a second.
Oh no. Yeah.
And she called and complained on me
Oh my god.
because I left it there. Like, I'm not supposed to, like, I'm not putting it in the back of my cruiser.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
it's kind
No.
of on you. Like, go put it in the ditch or, like,
Do something
and I'm
with
like,
it. Yeah.
Did you want me to, like, have a funeral with a pillowcase or something? Like, I don't know. And I probably saying what I said probably wasn't the most compassionate thing, but I was trying to warn
Yeah.
her, like, he's going to flop around for a second and then he's going to
Yeah.
go to heaven.
Yeah. Wherever. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you're bringing up another good point. Again, I apologize that we have a whole thing, but
Don't
and we will
apologize.
get to.
It's fine.
Yeah. The demeanor change, right? And it's something that people who know me or my children, stuff like that, when I got in law, you become very almost direct and just,
Mhm.
all the noise or all the fluff maybe in your speech kind of gets removed. It's just like, yeah, whatever. That's this. You just become more direct in what you're saying. I'm seeing it with my son. He's in the Marines,
Mm.
and it's just very matter of fact, even whatever it's his opinion or feelings or whatever. It's just, uh, there's no pause to consider how somebody else might take that is a good way
Yeah.
to say it.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't know how I don't know if you can fix that in law enforcement. That is,
I think there's a thing in our society, and I think it just has continued to grow and grow over the years, where it's like we have to soften the blow. We have to
yes,
make things comfortable for people. And
yeah,
I mean, I grew up around some harsh, hardened individuals, like farmers.
uh-huh.
They'll tell you what they think. And even just older generations. I mean, my great grandma, I had my hair done one time at 12 years old, and I thought it was great. She's like, that looks like a rat's nest. And I'm like, wow, okay. But
Yeah,
you, but I think there's too much coddling and too much softness in our society these days, where it's like everybody's so quick to be offended.
yeah,
Um, but I do also think that those of us in these professions can become kind of like chronically unimpressed
oh,
and
yeah,
really maybe take it to an extreme and not consider that what we're saying or how we're saying it could have an impact.
uh-huh.
So there's, the pendulum can swing too far one way or another.
Yeah, for
Bringing it
sure.
back to a happy medium would be ideal for everyone, but
Yeah,
we live in a real world, so.
damn right, damn right. Sorry, we'll get back on track. So, where did you start your career? What agency?
Um,
or whatever
Well,
you're willing to say.
I don't typically talk about the agency that I started in
That's
because
fine.
I was undercover. So I did
Yep.
undercover online investigations for a couple of years.
Was it like
It was a
a municipality, sheriff, deputy?
it was a village. It was a very small agency.
Got it.
And I think that was like really to their advantage with
Mhm.
with the ICAC, Internet Crimes Against Children stuff.
Yep, yep.
Um, and so I was doing controlled phone calls and, acting as the decoy, standing at Circle K, and then we actually used my, uh, high school cheerleading photos, and
Oh, no.
I was all in,
Yeah, yeah.
not looking too far into the future of, like, how that could potentially impact it's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Um, but I did that for a couple of years while I was doing my undergrad and went to the academy during that time as well, and then when I officially started getting paid to be in law enforcement, and this is I get some funny reactions from newbies and rookies because they're like, "Wait, you did all of that unpaid?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I was being paid in knowledge and experience, and like I was an auxiliary. I was
Mhm.
part of the police department, but I like I didn't get a paycheck for it." Like
Yeah.
people for like that was normal for our generation, and I don't think that there's a lot of people that will not uh do unpaid time anymore. And part of it, I don't totally blame them, because the world has changed a lot since then. But
For sure.
um,
It is a
the
fun job.
well, yeah, like,
You
and
do
there
some of the
are
craziest shit. They're like, "People pay me to do this? This is amazing."
right. Well, and there's that pendulum again. Like
Yeah.
it could be really, really, really fun, and it could be really heartbreaking and
Yes.
potentially dangerous. So,
For sure.
um, but my first real job was in Northeast Ohio with the Portage County Sheriff's Office, and um, started there working my way up through like court security and prison transports, and then road patrol, and
Was that their
did the
process? Did you have to do that?
um.
I'm fascinated. There are agencies that do that.
So because yeah, there are some agencies that like you have to start out in the jail and then you go
Yeah.
like and there wasn't like a strict policy on where you started out. It was just kind of like where they needed you.
Okay.
And and it worked out. Like ultimately it worked out really well because later on I ended up being a criminal court victim advocate, and so I knew the court system really well
Yeah.
um already. So it just worked out that way. But um, the bulk of my career was on road patrol afternoon shift. So high speed, low
Ah,
drag,
the
and
Gucci squad.
just,
Come on.
yeah, it was, black cars with yellow stripes. I felt like we were just like bumblebees, like floating around the county
Yeah.
because it was just, we were always moving, and there
Yeah.
was 500 square miles and maybe 4 to 6 of us on shift at a time. And it
For the
was a
whole
lot of
area?
fun. Mhm. I mean, there were city
No, no. Yeah,
departments
I gotcha.
within it, but yeah, there was a lot of it that was just township that was us.
So just to put it in perspective,
Well,
go ahead.
so population of the whole county though was like 150,000. So
Oh,
it
okay.
wasn't super dense if
Got
just
it. Okay.
for perspective, right?
No, that's fair. You know what? And it's my fault. When I think Ohio, I'm like Cleveland or Cincinnati, right? And I'm
Oh.
understanding that's not where you were. I get it. I'm tracking what you're
No.
saying. Yeah, yeah.
No.
Okay. Well, so because I someone had that. I've had both sides where Hillsborough, it's 888 square miles, and there's I don't know 800 deputies, not all at one time, but like
Oh my gosh.
there was four districts at my time. Each district had no, hold on. So, 10 zones because you had Alpha Bravo. So Alpha 1 through 5, Bravo 1 through 5, and each zone had 3 to 4 deputies in it. And you were
Wow.
running and you were
Mhm.
doing, average 2 to 4 report calls a night
Okay.
per deputy, not per
Yeah.
section, per deputy. It's like that.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
we
And then I went to
probably
Yeah. Then I went to Maine and there was 3 of us and we covered 3,000 square miles by ourselves. That was
Yeah.
it. Yeah. So a little different.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had, I would say our call volume anywhere from like 4 calls a night. There were nights that I was running 10 and 12 calls a night.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah,
And
there, again,
it's
it's
like,
not every night. Yeah.
right, right, right. But we averaged probably 8 or 9 calls a night
Yeah. That's
per deputy. Not,
damn.
yeah. So it was per
Yeah.
deputy. It was a
Yeah.
lot,
You
but it
know, it
was
is.
fun.
People, yeah, it is fun. And then when you get into that feeling, that what am I trying to say? That zone, so to speak, where you're like kind of going call to call. I don't know. I'm trying to explain it, but there were days that were fun, and there were days that like I'm fucking miserable. I hate it. It's too hot, and I don't want to do this anymore. I don't know how to balance that in my head. On the good days, they
Yeah.
were so fun, though.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that, um, and it kind of depends on like how you show up that day, right? Like,
very true.
is it the last day of your week? Is it the first day? Are you coming in fresh?
Yeah,
Um, and and it depends on the type of calls too. Um,
that's true.
and I mean, it depends on a lot of things because it could be who you're working that shift with. Also, that
Yeah.
could be a major factor.
Again, I was very lucky. Most of my law enforcement career from the beginning, I always had at least 1 or 2 close zone
Mm,
mates, partners, office mates, depending on what agency I'm working for, and it makes the job so much easier. I'm like, I can't imagine being you know who I'm talking about. There's individuals that
yeah.
they're all alone. They don't want anyone to be around them. They're kind of grumpy, and I'm like, that would make the world very difficult, especially in that
Yes.
career. Oh God,
Yeah. Well, because when you just when you do it long enough and you've had enough experience with different people on different calls, when that one guy keys up and you're like, things could be escalating,
hmm
but I might have it under control. And the one guy keys up and you're like, disregard, disregard, because you know that as soon as he shows up, like he's going to be like,
you're gonna make it bad. Yeah,
yeah, flashbang going off. Right. And then there's the guys that, you hear their unit number and you're like, oh, yep, come
thank
on.
God.
Like you're my dude. Like,
Yeah,
let's get this like ironed out together. Um, because you've done it before and you
yeah.
know how they operate and you trust them. And then there's the ones that you're like, I know they're not even going to key up to try to come my way. So it's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
I got
No,
this.
yeah, and then on the flip side, you were just reminding me, there was just to show the dichotomy of how you could be perceived. There was a deputy. He would call all the time on the radio, like screaming, like there's just like the world has come apart. And it was such a boy who cried wolf. It got so bad, the
Mm.
lieutenant would say, "Show me en route, clear everybody else." Because he's like, "What are you doing?" And it would
Wow.
never be anything crazy. It was never anything. Flip side of that, there was another guy, bad dude, just bad meaning like badass, like
Yeah.
SWAT guy. Like he was the one you're talking about. Like, oh, thank God he's here. Okay,
Yeah.
everyone's gonna be okay. He's here. He would get on the radio and go, "Hey, could you send me one other unit?" That's all he would say. 12 units would show up, and it's like he's mag lighting like 3 dogs biting him. He's got somebody at gunpoint. It's like shit has hit the fan. He's like, I just need like one other. I
Yeah.
need one set of hands. We're like, oh my God, but super calm on the radio.
Yeah.
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 So there's just I don't know how you. Anyway.
Well, you get to know
God.
the personalities, and that's important. I mean,
Yeah.
because then you can assess it from experience, from what you know.
No, for sure. God, I love it. See, I don't know. I guess today's just we're reminiscing a little bit, but I'm
It's
very
all good.
excited because but, kind of getting back how we got introduced to each other. Jason Palomara, Lil Barkowski, Doug White, and everyone's like, "Dude, you gotta talk to Amanda. You got to AK. You got to talk to her. You got to I think you guys would have a great episode." And I reached out to you, and I'm working my way through your book, which honestly, I wish I would have had 5 years ago
Mm.
when I didn't realize I was going through the burnout phase,
Yeah.
and it's well done. But sorry, I'm jumping ahead because your career, you got out on your own because you
Mhm.
recognized you were changing, and I don't want to skip over that. Apologies. Could you walk us through that piece?
Yeah. Um,
I get
so
excited.
I I recognized that I was changing, but I recognized after I had already kind of hit rock bottom. And it was a slow, not to be too punny, but it was a slow burn.
Mhm.
And it definitely didn't happen overnight, but it got to the point where I was I had a lot of brain fog and couldn't like literally my brain cells, I was like, I can't get them to have a meeting to make a sentence, right? Like
Yeah,
couldn't even write the simplest of reports, like a lockout or an alarm drop or something. Um, my physical health was declining despite the fact that I was at peak performance. So um, I was in the gym sometimes twice a day, meal prepping, supplements, protein, all the things. Um, and yet I was sick all the time. My immune system was just like tanked. I had shingles twice before the time I was 30, had to have my tonsils taken out when I was 26.
I got
Um,
shingles when I was a deputy. Yeah,
I,
one and only
it's,
time.
yeah, the stress is like,
Yeah.
it's insane. Like that's not something that you're not supposed to get shingles until you're like in your 60s. Um, anyhow, so it's, I was not putting all of these pieces together, and I didn't
Yeah.
actually put the pieces together until after all of it happened, and it was all hindsight. um, I was waking up every morning wishing that I hadn't. I was, I turned the dinger off on my seatbelt in my patrol car, and I was running hot to calls without my seatbelt, just playing Russian roulette. I was daydreaming about going left of center so it would look like an accident, um, and my family wouldn't have to be embarrassed. Like it was bad. It had gotten really bad, and simultaneously, um, outwardly, I had just bought a house, I had a
Yeah.
dog, I was officer of the year. All these things looked great. And so it was like, if I dare say that I'm struggling, nobody's even going to believe me.
Yeah.
And what it took was my now husband, when we started dating, he really, I think initially really enjoyed the novelty of like, yeah, my girlfriend's a badass cop. Like, it
Uh-huh.
was like, it was cool, until he started to kind of see behind the curtain and like what it looked like at the end of a shift.
Yeah.
And then I started to kind of reveal some of my inner thoughts. And he's like, oh, yikes. Thank God he didn't run away. Uh,
How long were you guys together when you did that? Sorry, not to get too personal.
um,
Just roughly.
it's hard to explain, to be honest, because we went on an initial date and then I ghosted him for like 6 months because I was really,
Okay.
I was, I knew that I actually liked him, and I was
Yeah.
like, I'm gonna screw this up because I'm not in a good headspace. And so I kind of
Mm.
just ghosted him. And then about 6 months later, we had sort of stayed in contact. Um, then he was like, you gonna let me take you on that second date? And I'm like, yeah, I get, like, if you're up
I
for
guess.
it. Um, so then we were officially dating for probably just a few weeks. Um,
Oh,
and actually he moved in in those few
my
weeks.
goodness. All right.
We moved a little fast. Well, sort of. We
Yeah.
kind of had like we had a buffer period
Yeah.
of ghosting,
Yeah.
and
You're married and you have kids now, so obviously it was okay.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah. This year we'll be married 10 years this year.
That's
Um,
tough.
so anyhow, we went on a trip to Nashville, and on the way back, I kind of had like a panic attack thinking about going back to work the following day.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Um, And I didn't have to go back until 4 PM the following day, but
Mhm.
just the thought of putting my uniform back on for some reason was like eating at me.
Mhm.
So the next day I went into the doctor, actually for a sinus infection. And I sort of revealed to them, like, hey, I'm also kind of suicidal.
Mm.
And
It's one way to do it, yeah.
I work in law enforcement. And they're like, take 2 weeks off. Here's a prescription. And I was like,
That was it?
okay.
Alright.
So I took the 2 weeks off. I did not take the prescription. Um, and I got back in the car and he had driven me there. And he's like, you don't have to do this. Like, it doesn't have to, you don't, if it's that
Yeah.
bad, like, you could do something else. And I'm like, really? Like, it never occurred to me that,
Yeah.
like, because I think when you take an oath and you take that seriously,
Mhm.
it's kind of like you're married to it. Like, it's like you're taking a vow to be together forever and ever. Amen. And, um, it never occurred to me that I could pick another job and,
Yeah,
you
no.
know, so, yeah, I took my 2 weeks and at in the middle of my 2 weeks, I put in my 2-week notice. Um,
How long have you been
and,
on at that point?
um, so that was 2015, about 8 years.
That's well, no, I'm trying to explain, like, that is a big fucking deal
Yeah,
because I can't tell you, the bond 8 years, like, you're right that you're kind of a senior almost, you know what I mean? You get what I'm saying. You're experienced, you have, bonds with people that you work with, you've done a few things in your career, especially if you were officer of the year, and also you're kind of invested, right? And
mhm.
financially, like, that's your retirement, your pension, your health insurance,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
this is my career. It's not again, I'm not knocking anybody who stays, this is not a knock on anything, but at the 8 to 10 year mark, it's like, this is what I'm doing. I have no other options because if I leave, then I've wasted my time. You see what I'm saying? Like, I get the
Yeah,
mind space,
yeah,
and so I know how hard that must have been at that time. I get it.
yeah. It was it was a lot of prayer, a lot
Yeah.
of, uh, sitting around, reflecting, thinking, but I can tell you that when I came home from having the meeting with my sergeant and my major, I felt like I actually had breath in my lungs.
Mm.
And I knew at that moment that I had made the right decision.
Man, that's so interesting because clearly it was affecting you obviously in a very negative way, but you were good at it, clearly, right?
Yeah.
Officer of the year, I'm just using those things, knowing nothing else. Um, but you recognize it in yourself. It's like, no, it's not for me.
Well, and it
It's
wasn't just the
awesome.
job. It
No, I
wasn't
get it. No,
just
I
the job.
understand.
It was, I had a lot of things had a lot of things in my upbringing that I didn't
Mhm.
recognize that were trauma, but I didn't know what that was. I didn't have any context for
Yeah.
that. So I had a lot of unresolved stuff that built up over the
Yeah.
years. I didn't recognize how being in um, internet crimes against children investigations at 19 years old, how that would affect me.
Yeah, I
Didn't.
was gonna gloss over that, but that's a lot. I wasn't gonna
um,
yeah, that's pretty hardcore.
I didn't, and so it was really a buildup of a lot of different things. Um, but recognizing in that moment of like, I have choices, I have
Yeah.
options. And in that clarity that I felt immediately after, it didn't stay that way. I had
Yeah.
lots of doubts. I had lots of moments where I was like, I just need to go back. I went back as a special deputy. I took another auxiliary position to like hold on to that identity, right? Like,
Yeah.
because it was hard to give
Yeah.
that up. Um, I had my nervous system kind of like collapsed after I left, and I turned into Rumpelstiltskin and I slept for like 18 hours a day every day for a month. Because completely involuntarily. I was so angry about it. Um, but that was my nervous system being like, rest. Like
Yeah.
you've been going too hard. Like you need to cool your jets. Um, but in my head, I went, I just gave up my purpose in life.
Mm.
I must be depressed. I need to go back. Like that was
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
like I was
Yeah.
like my identity is gone. And
Yeah.
so I equated what my body was going through with the fact that I had just given up my purpose in life.
Mhm.
Not at all the case. I now know how the nervous system works and that was all just a biological kind of like restraint collapse, because I'd been holding it together for so long and my body finally had a chance to catch up.
Mhm.
um, but and that's an important thing I think for the listeners to know too, because so many people go through that and they think that they're super depressed because they've left the job, and really it's just your nervous system catching up. And so if you choose to leave the job, not that I'm telling people to jump ship, but if you choose to leave, don't let that don't let your nervous system fool you.
Yeah.
Give it 6 months. Give it a little bit of time for everything to kind of like balance out and um, sort of recalibrate a new baseline, because it's very deceiving when you go through. And I've worked with tons of people through my coaching, who have experienced that, and they're like, I'm so glad that you're
Mhm.
like explaining this because now it makes sense. Um, but yeah, it was not an easy decision by
No,
any
no.
means.
And I wanna get into kinda like how you got to the level where you're at now, where you have learned so much, but one of the things that I'm trying to formulate or articulate, and I'm still working through it, is a lot of times when, and I know more about cops than other first responder stuff, but we're trying to expand to everyone in the field, so to speak. And not that it's just for first responders, but they cops typically don't reach out for help until it's like you're stage 4 or stage 5. And I'm
Yeah.
using that as a reference to cancer, but I don't know another way to phrase it mentally. Like you were talking about, think dreaming of drifting to the other side. There's got to be a way. There has to be a way to prevent that, or at least to monitor it or to exercise, the your mind or through therapy or whatever it is, like throughout your career, just like you do your body, right? You're talking about you're working out twice a day, your supplements, your dieting, you're taking care of your body. There's got to be a way to take care of your mind that's palpable or easily to digest for somebody, because there's we talked about it offline, the stigma. Nobody wants to go to therapy, psychiatry. Nobody wants to take the medications. Nobody wants to do any of those things because they'll be shunned or looked down upon. But in the meantime, we have an epidemic of suicide, cancer, like all these, like to your point, I've just started putting these things together. When your body is maintaining that high level of stress, I've talked to several cops that have had cancer, not just once, but multiple times. Not that
Yeah.
it's funny, but it's like there's something going on here. We have got to do a better way of addressing it and not making it seem like such a monumental task. I don't know. I'm not formulating it very well, but um, to your point, like you learned all this after the fact. I was like, how much could you have addressed it if you learned this like when you started your career or early on? I don't know.
Yeah.
If that makes
W-
sense.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, when I left, I didn't tell them that I was struggling.
No, I
I I
understand that.
I
And why
told
would you?
them I
Yeah,
told them I was going to further my education, which I did
you did.
ultimately,
Yeah,
but that was that was not at all why I was leaving.
yeah,
And um it there's so many different directions I could go with this, but
yeah. No,
I'll say this, it's the reason why I focus on burnout so much is
yeah,
because if you look at the 12 stages of burnout, the final stage of burnout is not wanting to be in your own life anymore.
hmm,
And we have become so good at normalizing and glorifying and praising all of the middle ground factors of burnout. The emotional numbness gets mistaken for stoic professionalism.
Yep.
Um, the short fuse sarcasm, cynicism feels really justified because we live in this world that hates us.
Yep.
Um, we are constantly needing more stimulation, coffee, adrenaline, scrolling. We become addicted to our own stress hormones, the adrenaline and the cortisol. And I talk about that in Beat the Burnout, the frontline service attachment. We don't
Yeah.
understand what we're doing to ourselves biologically. Um, Sleep is not restorative because we're not actually getting into sleep. And one of the biggest issues for first responders is alcohol. And so we think, oh, I'll just have a little nightcap. It'll help me get to sleep. Well, yes, it helps you get to sleep because it's a sedative. It does not let you get into REM sleep, which is
Yeah.
restorative. It doesn't essentially, REM sleep takes out the debris of the day. It takes out the trash at night to allow the actual meaningful things that you want to retain to take hold in your brain.
Yeah.
Um, the the loss of patience at home, but the being able to hold it together at work, it's just culturally accepted. Nobody thinks anything about it. And because most first responders are high functioning people, we don't recognize burnout, but high functioning burnout is still burnout. You're still dealing with the exhaustion, the cynicism, and the loss of purpose,
Yeah.
whether or not you're still functioning.
Well, I like how you phrased it in, I believe it was in your book. Burnout is the predictable response to chronic stress. It's not weakness. It's not like, well, I don't know. We've all old heads. Suck it up. That's why you get paid every 2 weeks or whatever it is that it doesn't matter what you're going through either. I'm on my fourth divorce and my kids don't talk to me. That's part of the job. I mean, I've literally heard
Right.
that interaction more than once,
Yeah.
occur. And it's like, I don't know what it is and why there's just that you talked about the stoicism, but it's like there's something wrong. It's not weakness. I need to fix it.
Yeah. And,
And it's
you know,
predictable to your point.
when we normalize that
Yeah.
stuff, you're essentially saying you're essentially putting a price or a paycheck on taking
Mhm.
years off of your life. That cortisol, the adrenaline makes you feel really alive. The dopamine, it makes you feel, really good in the moment, but it's taking years off of your life and your body.
Yeah.
Are you really able to put a price on that? Is that paycheck really worth it? What's the legacy you're leaving behind?
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are really hard questions. They make people really
Uh,
uncomfortable.
I've talked about it, and myself because like I've had a reset in my careers a few times, but it was really hard for me to disconnect the two. Like I'm doing something good, my job, it's a good job. I'm doing something positive. It makes me, I'm a good person and I'm doing it
Yes.
for the right reasons because I'm taking care of my family. Even though on the back end, I'm an asshole and my kids don't like talking to me anymore and they're pulling away from me. It was hard for me to rationalize that. And again, I'm lucky I was able to fix that before it went too far. I've heard the other side of that where unfortunately that might not be the case. But I kind of want to just tie in because I love the way you phrase things, but the identity fusion with the job and its cost, that
Mm.
concept. And I took some pieces out, but could you elaborate on that? Because that spoke to me personally.
Which
Where your identity is the job, but then
oh,
how it costs you on the out, whether your friends, family, or sometimes, there's the other side where it's very hard to stay in a relationship. There's a lot of lonely first responders.
yeah. Well, so
That's
the
how I took it.
interesting
Sorry.
thing, and I'm gonna nerd out for a second.
Do it.
Bessel van der Kolk, the author of The Body Keeps the Score, talks about how the essence of trauma is the loss of identity. So if we are experiencing trauma or we work in a trauma-rich environment, whether we understand trauma or not, whether we identify it or not, it's there, it's real. Um, if we experience that, we essentially are losing our identity. So doesn't it make sense that we would just adopt the identity via our SOP and uniform. Duh. Um,
Yeah.
and now I am this thing. So it's not just I do this thing, it's I am this thing. I
Yeah.
am a cop, right? And society really reinforces this because whether you're in uniform or not, you're a cop. If you're at a birthday party, you're the cop, right?
Yep.
Like it's
Yep.
just
That's very true.
it's who you are. And
Hmm.
so it's of course we fall into that. But when you look at the entirety of your life, it is a sliver of who you are.
Yeah.
And so we take that one sliver and we expand it and make it the umbrella over everything in our lives. So now we're coming home and we're treating our family like people on the street. Now we're making sure that we're hyper vigilant everywhere. We think that, you know, even if you felt comfortable having your back to the door at a restaurant, you wouldn't dare do it because if somebody else walked in and saw you doing it, they're going to think you're being a bad cop.
Hmm.
It's, you know, and so
It's true.
sometimes we do these things not out of our own urges, but out of what we're told is expected of us, right? So it kind of becomes this. I'm really going to nerd out here. Our own confirmation bias
Yeah.
of um, how we see things becomes our own self-fulfilling prophecy. So
Yeah.
stick with me on this.
No, I'm on
So
it. Yeah.
yeah. So if we create our own filter and how we see and perceive the world,
Hmm.
and so then we act in accordance with that. And if we then act in accordance with that, all of these other byproducts that are not desirable byproducts, the divorce, the alcoholism, the loss of connection, the whatever else, you name it, right? Health issues, burnout, all of that stuff becomes our own self-fulfilling prophecy because we're feeding into it with our own actions and our own beliefs because
Hmm.
we've created this echo chamber based on this little sliver of our lives. Whereas if we saw the job as a job
Hmm.
and not our entire identity, we would be able to disconnect from it more. So it's not a matter of disconnecting or decoupling from the job altogether, but it's a matter of can you be in another place and time without that being your identity? Can you connect with your family? Can you go to a church service and sit there? Can you go hang out with your buddies at the bowling alley and not be the cop,
Hmm.
right? And sometimes that's on you because we're like, well, everybody sees me that way. Well, we teach people how to treat us. And if you say, hey guys, listen, that's my job. I'm not at work right now. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to think
Hmm.
about it. Right now, I'm just Joe or whatever your name is.
Whatever.
So there's like 4 different rabbit holes I could go down, but that, you know,
No, no, I love it.
I think when we initially talked, we talked about chasing rabbits and
Oh
here we
yeah.
are. So
No, no, no. That was well. So well said. I've used that same type of thought process on a smaller scale, and I'll just give you the example. So my ex-wife, and sometimes I was an asshole, but one of the things I used to say, I was like, if you filter everything I say and do through he's an asshole, then there's nothing I can ever do. Because even when I'm not trying to be an asshole, the way you're responding, I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm trying to not be an asshole right now, but you've already set this filter up. So
yeah.
to hear the way you phrase it, that's what I was like, oh my God, I've literally had this conversation in a smaller capacity. But yeah, it makes sense.
Well, and because we we set up our own expectations and we see
Yeah.
what we want to see out of life. If you want to see every single thing in life through a political lens, then that's exactly how you're going to see it. If you
Great.
want to be offended, you're always going to find something to be
Yeah.
offended about. But alternatively, if you want to find enjoyment in life, you're going to be able to find it. If you want to be able to find things to be grateful for, you're going to be able to find it. It all comes down to your beliefs.
Yeah.
and all your beliefs stem from who you believe you are.
I want to get into the recovery. I got one more topic though. I'm loving it. I appreciate your time. I'm so glad we made this happen. But there's a couple things you talk about: emotional numbness,
Mhm,
irritability, and withdrawal.
mhm.
Can you explain what that looks like? I know what it means, but I guess expand on that.
Um, so irritability, just having that short fuse, right?
Mhm.
Not being able to tolerate life,
Yeah.
not being able to tolerate other people's excitement, right? Goes back to that chronically unimpressed.
Yes, that's what I was. Yeah. Where it's like
Okay.
you can't even enjoy the good things that are happening.
Yeah. Like
I'm speaking for myself. Like
yeah,
if your
you
kids are
can't let
excited, you're like you're
yourself
being
be in,
irritating. Yeah.
yeah, you can't let yourself be in the moment.
Yeah.
Um, Emotionally numbing is really just, um, the people that they're like, "Well, I don't have any expectations because if I expect something, I'm just gonna get disappointed." So you just stay right at this baseline, but that is not human. We have emotions, which are just data and evidence from the body, and they ebb and they flow, and
Yeah.
that is okay. Um, there's a time and a place for the stoicism. There's a time and a place to be, um, I don't want to say emotionally shut down, but emotionally stoic is appropriate. Um, but there's if you don't have the ability to turn that off and actually connect,
Mhm.
then that's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
That means that you're checked out, you're dissociated, um, and what was it, the withdrawal and
Yes.
the isolation. Um, so what we tend to do is, and this all of those things come down from the cynicism part of burnout. And cynicism really is just a psychological distancing from something that we don't like, don't understand, sometimes something that we do want, but we don't believe that we have the ability to achieve it, right? Like,
Yep.
I wouldn't want a million, wouldn't know what to do with $1 million anyway.
Yeah.
Um, okay. But it comes out in sarcasm and skepticism and mistrust. And that causes us to put distance between ourselves and other things. And then we become isolated and we become very insular. And I don't. I don't trust the outside world. Then it's, I don't trust the guys I work with. Then it's, I don't even trust my own family members if they're not in my household. And then
Yeah.
you start to look at the people in your household and you're like, can I
Mhm.
even trust them? Then you start to look in the mirror, and that's where things get really dangerous. And you're like, I don't
Yeah.
even know if I can trust myself. And that is a very scary place to be. Um, but that is why I focus so hard on this middle ground of burnout, catching these guys where these things are starting to slip before there's a landslide. Because once there's a landslide, it is very hard to climb your way back up. So if we can start to get your footing while you're just kind of barely slipping and start to notice where these things are going. And I'll
Mhm.
tell you, it's hard because so often, again, these things are so normalized and glorified. Um, People look at you and if they have not experienced it, they go, yeah, okay, sure. And they look at you like deer in the headlights, like whatever. It's really hard to talk to academies because they don't know what they don't know.
I was
And
gonna.
they seriously completely discount it, and I'm like, "Come back to me in 10 years."
So
Unfortunately.
I, I want to get to some of the recovery stuff, but I was going to ask you this, so I'm just going to ask you now
Yeah.
because I've always thought, and you're the second person. I was like, I wish we could talk about this in the academy, and they would know. And you're now the second person. It's like they don't know, and they dismiss you because they have no idea what you're talking about. And I'm like,
Yep.
yeah, but if you wait for 10, 15 years, they're already crotchety and they don't want to know. They're like, yeah, that's the problem. We're trying to figure that out. So,
So
so your opinion, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, so, rookies and cadets think that they're immune.
Yeah. Hasn't
As
happened.
did I, right?
Yeah.
We all do. We all think that we're immune to it. We all think that we're invincible and that we're just going to push through. And what the hell are you talking about, lady?
Mhm.
Um, I will tell you. So I have, because I've spoken to rooms of rookies, and it's like, they're a tough crowd.
Mhm.
Um, the people that I have the most response from are the ones who are in middle management, and they're feeling the pressure, and they're like, "Oh my God, you make so much sense.
Yeah.
Where were you 10 years ago? Oh my gosh." And they're, I've had people who have been on for 33 years. I've had chiefs, I've had sheriffs, I've had people who have had decades on come up to me after my presentations and just look at me with tears in their eyes and say, "Thank you, because you made it make sense. And
Yeah.
I don't feel broken. And now I feel like I have some things I can actually do to act as a pressure valve." Um, and they are still they're still a tough crowd. Like,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
but what I have learned, because that societal pressure, that peer pressure is real, is that even if they're sitting there and they're either squirming, or maybe they're trying to distract themselves because it's making them uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um, I have to trust what I know, because when I get the reviews back and they are writing things down where nobody's going to see it or hear it, they're like, "This is phenomenal information, blah, blah, blah." And so they were paying attention. They were listening. They were, some of them taking notes, and I just thought they were like scrolling on their phone. Um, but it, they don't want to appear to anybody else like they're actually listening, because that might indicate to somebody else that they're burning out and that they're having a hard time. Isn't that wild?
Oh, no,
Like,
1, yes. 2, that's me, or was me. I didn't know it though. See, for me, it was I went through the process of I didn't know what was happening. My world was falling apart. I didn't know how to fix it. So then I started having therapy, going to therapy. And then I started realizing it. And now I'm 5, 6 years out from that beginning of that process. And I look back and I go, damn it, I was in bad shape. And I didn't even know it. I didn't know it at the time.
yeah,
Um, and again, not to sound cliche, but I've told my kid, I was like, it's hard for me now to even recognize who that person was. I think I talked about it. It was like there was a
that's good though. That means there's a
oh
lot of
yeah,
transformation that's happened.
oh yeah. I think there was The Office. I can't remember. There was a thing where he goes, "I don't recognize that person. That was a totally different person," but he's referred to like 30 minutes ago when he did something shitty. Anyway, I
That's
feel
perfect.
that way because I'm like, I can't believe I used to say or do that. Because sometimes my kids will be like, "Dad, you remember you used to say this all the time?" And I go, "That's horrifying. I said that to you? Oh yeah, a lot." I was. I'm so sorry. I'm glad you don't feel that way today. I mean,
Yeah.
it just,
Well,
not to get too personal, but it's a process, I guess.
but
Scary.
good for you for recognizing it. And, when you have those moments of reflection and you look back on your old self and you cringe, that means you've grown. That means you've evolved. That means you recognized it and you did something about it.
Yeah,
Um, it's the people who never change that is concerning, right? Like the people
yeah,
who refuse to see their own blind spots. Um, but it's most people think that burnout is like this major crash and burn dumpster fire situation, and truly it's a slow erosion, which is why most people don't recognize it, which is why I wrote my book, because I'm like, how else are you going to know, right? Like, it is just this slow drip over time where you just lose pieces of your humanness, and you start to maybe lose your edge a little bit, and then we think we just have to work harder. And really, that's what then works against you. It's
no,
what you really need is restoration and a posture shift.
it's so good. I wanna be respectful of your time. I
I'm
could talk to
good.
you for
I'm
hours.
good.
No, I appreciate it. Not to minimize your book or what you do or to give too much away, but could you give a few points on recognizing some of the signs of burnout, and then I do really want to spend a little bit of time on the recovery phase. But is there a way for you to transition from recognizing these signs, and then we'll get into? Uh, I'm hesitant to say fix them, but address them, I guess, is the best way to phrase that.
Yeah. Um,
Doesn't have to be all of them.
when you break it down,
Yeah.
it's the just to keep it simple, it's the exhaustion, mental, physical, emotional, and then what I call even like a soul fatigue.
Hmm.
And without even knowing the definition,
I
everybody
understand it.
understands
I
that,
feel it.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so it's the exhaustion, the cynicism that we talked about, that skepticism, the mistrust, the sarcasm, and the chronically unimpressed. And then that the last one is a fancy way of saying it is a low sense of self-efficacy, which really is just feeling like you're not making a difference anymore, feeling like you're not making an impact anymore, kind of losing your purpose, losing your spark.
Hmm.
And that becomes a dangerous place to be, because when you look at all three of them, they all feed each one of them feeds into the other two.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes like this shitstorm. Um, so, but when you're looking at it, and we already touched on a lot of them, but that irritability,
Yeah.
um, the physical things, chronic headaches, muscle tension, unexplained physical issues, um,
See, I just got
the,
fat.
the
That was me. I was fatty.
well, but a lot of times we don't recognize that we're like marinating in our own cortisol,
Yeah.
and all day long, you have an adrenaline dump, and you're still pumping out stress hormones for the next minimum 2 hours. Well, what are the chances that in that next 2 hours you're going to have another adrenaline dump?
Pretty high.
Probably pretty high. And
Yeah.
so your whole shift, that's happening, and then
Yeah.
you do it every day, and we don't recognize how it's wreaking havoc on our bodies. And it could be sustainable with the proper care and recovery.
Hmm.
But we often don't do that because we
No.
come home and the grass needs mowed and the kids need to go to baseball and we got to do the dishes and the laundry and homework,
Oh,
and somewhere in there I got to work out and all these things. And life just kind of walks away with you and you're
oh,
like
no.
trying to catch up. Um, so usually it's not about implementing more things, it's about taking some things away.
Yeah.
And one major one is scrolling.
Oh, the phones. Yeah.
How many people? I mean, people are always on their phones constantly, and it leads to being sedentary. It leads to being not present with the people around you. It the isolation, which is further contributes to the burnout. Um, and then you really start to let these beliefs sink in, the self doubt, and um that starts to chip away at your identity, and all of those things really start to chip away at your humanity and your
Yeah.
ability to just pay attention to what matters.
I like the way you break things down, and I'm again, everything will be in the description. I want people should read the book, and again, it'll be another book that cops should read. But I'm like this one, it's the way you phrase things, and I think it's important because you did it right. It's not just some PhD who did a thesis on it. It's like, oh, this is a lot of science stuff that makes a lot of sense. It's like, no, no, no. This is what I went through. This is what I've learned. This is how to recognize it. So hopefully I'm phrasing
Well,
this well, 'cause I'm like, it is good, and it's just you need to be able to understand what you're reading, and I think that's the hard part
yeah. Well, and I
sometimes.
appreciate that because, by the way, it was not written with ChatGPT. That is something that drives me up an absolute wall. But no,
But people do that
I
or
spent.
say that you did that. I don't yeah, I know what you're
Oh
saying,
no,
but there's no other way to do it.
just because people do that because it
Oh,
sounds flowery, but there's no substance to it.
yeah, no,
I spent I
yeah,
spent so much time looking at my own experiences, looking at the research, there's over 100 references and sources in the back. Um, so much time looking at all of these things and then synthesizing them down to make them make sense. And then
Yeah.
even the structure of the book and how I put it together, the very beginning is very simple terms, very basic stuff on purpose, because as Doug White would say, when you're burned out, brain not work so good. and
Yeah.
and it's true, because you have
Yeah.
like this cognitive decline
Hmm.
where you just can't get up into your rational, logical prefrontal cortex, and because you're operating in survival mode. And as the book goes on, and if you're, I don't know what part you're in right now, but you'll start to see that there's more nuance added. The language becomes more complex. The concepts become more complex. And then you start to get into places that you didn't even know existed, or didn't even really have the capacity to think about. So as the book goes, you're building capacity for more and more. And I, again, that's just me nerding out, but I put so much care and thought into it. Um, and I hope that that is reflected when people read it.
Yes, you give a shit, is the way that I'll phrase that.
Yes,
And
I
people,
do.
you can tell. I know people don't read books anymore. I've talked to a few authors, fiction and nonfiction. They're like, it is. He goes, writing a book right now is so fucking hard because nobody cares, nobody wants to read it. But it's the amount of effort you put in, and for those who actually do, it's like you can tell when you. I love reading books, physical books in my hand. That's what I do. And you can tell when somebody's just kind of phoning it in or something like that, as opposed to like they actually are, they give a shit about what they're trying to say. And for those who are out there, type, uh, write me a 60 to 80,000 word book on ChatGPT. It's going to be bullshit. You could try it. I could tell you it doesn't work. I use ChatGPT for like white papers and stuff like that. And I always have to like go back through and, anyway, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's funny you said that. I was like, anyway, no way those
No,
books are good.
because I've read a couple. People have sent me their books, and I've read a couple, and I'm like, this is clearly AI. Like, oh
Oh, really?
Lord,
Like that?
yes, yes,
Ooh,
um,
okay.
yeah, it's cringy, but
Yeah, people
I,
could tell. It's not there yet.
yeah, but
Yeah.
um, but speaking of how people don't read anymore,
Yeah.
my Audible is actually done. I'm waiting on the support from the software people to help me adjust a couple of things, and it'll be
Yeah.
out very, very soon on Audible. So I'm excited
Did
about
you do
that.
the audio yourself?
I did, and I added so much good
Ah,
stuff in there. I'm so excited. So at the end of every chapter is like an additional wrap up, and it's just my candid thoughts after rereading it.
it's
Um,
awesome.
and then I did I haven't said anything yet about what it is, but I'm happy to reveal that now. At the very beginning, I did an ode to the late great Paul Harvey, and it is called "If I Were Burnout," and it is so
Ooh, all
good.
right.
It's so good.
Drop it. I love it.
Yeah,
You know what? That's such a good idea. Do people do that for their audiobook stuff?
I don't know. I mean,
You know what? Fuck it. Who cares? You did, and I like
there's
it. Yeah.
there's people who like will insert kind of just like some candid thoughts at the end of a
Yeah.
chapter and stuff. So that's not new or unique, but no, I really just wanted to. I love Paul Harvey, and I a few months ago wrote this piece, and I was
Yeah.
like, this is so good, but I don't know what to do with it. Like, do
Mm,
I just put it on YouTube? I don't know. No, now it has a place. It has a,
yeah.
yeah. So
Well done. Awesome. See, that's what I'm saying. I love it. Just push it and just go for it. All right. Again, I respect your time, but I'll lay them out. We can kind of touch on them because I feel like we've been talking about the recovery stuff or the addressing them, and I don't want to leave anybody hanging. I have it broken down, and you can correct the stabilization where you have it broken up like sleep regulation, immediate support, the rebuild phase, peer support, counseling, movement, nutrition. Movement, I wrote it that way, but like working out, I'm assuming, or well, I don't know. I'll let you. I don't want to speak for you. And then lastly is the sustain phase, identity beyond the job and long-term habits, which I feel like you've kind of alluded to, but can you want to address those in any way? I didn't want to speak for you, put words in your mouth.
Yeah. So, and you broke it down perfectly. That's actually kind of how I formatted it in the book and
Hmm.
to make it make sense. But before you do before you try to go into therapy and do any kind of like deep work, which you can start therapy at any time, but before you really start to open up your mind and your emotions, um, you need to stabilize your body. So if you're drinking 9 beers a night, maybe start to pull back a little bit. Do not
Hmm.
go, I'm going to tell you right now, do not go cold turkey. That is not advisable by any medical professional. Um, because if you have been, you've had an alcohol problem for a long time and you go
Hmm.
into withdrawal, it can actually cause seizures. Um, it's not an excuse to keep drinking, but it's, but
Hmm.
maybe back off of it a little bit, drink some more water. But stabilizing the body is super important because before you go into trying to work on m- mental shifts or emotional releasing, um, you need to establish a felt sense of safety in the body. Your nervous system has to feel that it's secure enough to do that. But if you are constantly, you know, caffeine and drinking bang all day and then down in alcohol at night and you're constantly relying on those external chemical substances to keep you regulated,
Hmm.
your body's not feeling safe. I can tell you that right now. Um, Making sure that you're hydrating is so much more important than just like not getting dehydrated. There's so much that goes into it and I don't think I even talked about this in the book, but making sure that your fascia is hydrated and super quick little rabbit hole, because if your fascia, which is the webbing that holds all of your innards in,
Hmm.
if it's dehydrated, it's going to act as shrink wrap and it's going to push on your lymphatic system, which is your drainage system that takes all of the toxins out of your body and all of your waste. When your lymphatic system is not working and it's backed up, it affects your endocrine system, which is your hormonal hub. And hormones control almost everything in your body. And then we wonder why we feel out of whack all the time and we're moody and our testosterone's low and all of these things. Maybe there are other factors. Sometimes it's just because you don't drink water. Sometimes it's just because you don't move your body and take care of your fascia and hydrate. Just, I mean, and by the way, then I could go down 7 different rabbit holes about drinking water. And I actually did one time in a keynote. And when I
Good.
when I finished up, everybody was standing at the water thing trying to fill up their
Jesus.
water bottles. But anyway,
Good.
sleep, it is
Huge.
so, so important to get restorative sleep.
Yeah.
We Going without sleep is not a flex. It's not like,
Oh,
check me out, I'm a robot, I can, it is not a flex at all. It is a liability.
yeah.
Um, so taking care of all the basics, and then you can start to move into, so I always like to say, if we're going to be extraordinary, we have to remember that the foundation for the extra is the ordinary. It is the sleep, the nutrition, the movement, um, relationships, things like that. And then we can start to move into the extra and go and be heroic and brave and courageous and all the things. Um, but then the next level is really focusing on identity and making sure that those relationships are intact. Even finances, people don't think about that, but it is a huge, huge stressor. Nothing's going to put you into survival mode like being broke. And when you are in burnout, we seek dopamine, right? So I'm going to buy the big shiny truck because I like the big shiny truck because it makes me feel really good about myself. But now I have to work overtime to maintain the payment on the big shiny truck. And so now I'm in a perpetual state of working overtime and I'm getting
Yes.
exhausted and I'm cynical. And then I can't even enjoy the big shiny truck. So then I'm just going to be mad and pissed off all the time, you
Yeah.
know? So we have to like reprioritize and realign what's important in life.
Yeah.
And, uh, yeah, so just building on the basics and then moving up through the ranks on what's important. But I think sometimes as first responders, we're so used to being, uh, dare I say, we're so used to being awesome or
Mhm.
extraordinary or high achievers and being good in high pressure situations that we don't want to humble ourselves and focus on these minuscule, basic little things.
Mhm.
And they often become overlooked and undervalued because we don't think that it's going to move the needle. Well, what is drinking water going to do? Well,
A
it's going to
lot.
do a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And when you start to compound these little things, then they
Mhm.
become really big things.
Yeah.
And we just don't like to hear that. We would rather take some ashwagandha and um, you
Uh-huh.
know, go do something else that's going to feed us our dopamine outside of ourselves.
Yeah. Water's not as exciting. For sure.
No.
Funny you should say that. I do have a financial planner coming on in the next couple of weeks because I was like, that is such a good point that to your point that you're making. And it's a stress and I think it's almost more secretive than the mental health thing. Cops, you tell
Oh,
me,
yeah.
cops do not talk about their retirement. They talk about retiring, but
Yes.
you try to get a like, well, how much do you have saved? Or you're not getting an answer.
Mm-mm.
Period. The end. Nobody wants to talk about it.
No. Well, I will give one little thing because I
Yeah.
was the second time I was on Doug White's podcast Tell This Story, I it just fell out of my mouth and it was so good and it deserves to be repeated. So when it comes to all of this mental wellness stuff,
Mhm.
if you put down the cynicism and
Mm.
pick up some humility and then go connect with somebody, that can be step one. That's a solid step one. Drop the cynicism, pick up some humility, and go connect to somebody.
Well said. Well said. Thank you so much. Don't go anywhere.
I will.